Detective Marcus Chen pressed his palm against the cold concrete wall of his cell, listening to the rhythmic clang of metal doors echoing through Riverside Correctional. 23 years on the force, commendations lining his office wall, and now he wore orange instead of blue. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd walked these same corridors countless times, bringing criminals to justice. Now he was one of them, at least according to the jury. The conviction had come swift and merciless. Evidence tampering, witness intimidation, corruption charges that painted him as everything he'd spent his career fighting against. Marcus knew the truth. Someone had orchestrated his downfall with surgical precision, planting evidence, buying testimony, creating a narrative so convincing even he almost believed it. Almost. But tonight, none of that mattered. Tonight, his thoughts were consumed by a single devastating reality. His partner was dying. Not his human partner. Detective Rodriguez had testified against him, adding another layer of betrayal to his nightmare. No, his real partner lay in a veterinary clinic across town, a 13-year-old German shepherd named Kaiser who had been by his side through divorce, the death of his father, and countless dark nights when the job nearly broke him. The phone. Call from Dr. Sarah Martinez had come 3 hours ago. Cancer. Advanced. Days, maybe hours left. Marcus had dropped the phone, his legs giving out beneath him. The other inmates had looked away, understanding that some grief was too private to witness. Chen. Officer Williams appeared at his cell door, keys jangling. Warden wants to see you. Marcus followed silently through familiar hallways, past cells housing men whose cases he'd worked, whose lives he'd helped destroy. Some nodded respectfully. Even here, his reputation as an honest cop preceded him. Others turned away, uncomfortable with the presence of a fallen hero. Warden Patricia Hayes sat behind her desk, reviewing a thick file. She was younger than Marcus, expected maybe 45, with intelligent eyes that seemed to see everything. He'd heard she was fair but firm, a former prosecutor who understood both sides of the system. Sit down, Detective Chen. She didn't look up immediately. That's what you prefer to be called, isn't it? Despite everything? It's who I am, Marcus replied quietly. According to this file, you've been a model prisoner. No incidents, no complaints. You've even been helping other inmates with their appeals. She finally met his eyes. That's unusual for someone in your position. Guilt doesn't make you innocent. Innocence doesn't make you free. Hayes leaned back in her chair. Dr. Martinez called me personally, told me about your dog, said you raised him from a puppy, that he was your K9 partner before retiring to become your pet. She paused. She also said he's been refusing food since your arrest. Dogs are loyal that way. Marcus felt his throat tighten. Kaiser had always been more than a working dog. He'd been family, the one constant in a life that had seen too much darkness. The thought of him suffering, confused and alone, was unbearable. She wants to bring him here, Hayes continued. Says he deserves to say goodbye to his partner. That's not possible, Marcus said, though hope flickered in his chest. No, it's not. Prison regulations are clear. Hayes closed the file and stood. But sometimes, Detective Chen, the system allows for compassion, even when it fails at justice. She walked to the window overlooking the prison yard. Dr. Martinez will be here tomorrow at 2 p.m. You'll have 30 minutes in the chaplain's office. Just you, the dog, and whatever peace you can make with goodbye. Marcus stared at her, unable to speak. In a world that had shown him nothing but cruelty, this small mercy felt enormous. Why? He finally managed. Hayes turned back to him, and for a moment her professional mask slipped. Because sometimes, Detective, we have to choose between following rules and doing what's right. And because I've read your case file. All of it. The night passed without sleep. Marcus lay on his narrow bunk, staring at the ceiling while memories of Kaiser flooded his mind. The day he'd picked him from the litter. A small, fierce puppy who'd bitten his finger and refused to let go. Their first drug bust together. Kaiser's nose leading them to 50 pounds of cocaine hidden in a false floor. The quiet evenings after. His divorce when Kaiser would rest his massive head on Marcus's lap, sensing his partner's pain without judgment. Morning count felt eternal. Marcus moved through the routine mechanically. Breakfast he couldn't taste. Recreation time he spent staring at walls. Work detail in the prison library where he helped other inmates draft appeals that would likely go nowhere. The system was efficient at conviction, less so at correction. "You look like hell," said Tommy Rodriguez, not his former partner, but a lifer who'd taken Marcus under his wing. Tommy had been inside for 15 years, armed robbery turned ugly, and he'd learned to read people with the precision of a psychologist. "Today's the day," Marcus said, shelving returned books with deliberate care. "The dog thing?" Tommy nodded knowingly. "Heard some of the guards talking. Word spreads fast in here." He paused, studying Marcus's face. "You know this ain't really about saying goodbye, right?" Marcus looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" "Come on, detective, you think Warden Hayes is running a charity? She mentioned reading your whole case file, all of it. That means something." Before Marcus could respond, Officer Williams appeared. "Chen, time to go." The walk to the chaplain's office felt like a march to execution. Marcus's hands trembled, a weakness he hadn't allowed himself since his arrest. Through the small window he could see Dr. Martinez's van in the parking lot, custom-built for transporting animals. His heart hammered against his ribs. The chaplain's office was modest but warm, with soft lighting and comfortable chairs. Dr. Martinez stood when he entered, her eyes immediately assessing him with the clinical precision of someone who'd seen too much suffering. "Marcus." She didn't offer to shake hands, prison protocols, but her voice carried genuine warmth. "He's been asking for you." "Asking?" "You know how he gets. That whine he makes when he's confused, looking for someone who should be there but isn't." She moved toward the door. "He's weak but lucid. The cancer's in his liver, spreading fast. I could keep him comfortable for maybe another week, but he's ready," Marcus finished. She nodded and opened the door. Kaiser entered slowly, his once powerful frame reduced but dignified. His dark eyes found Marcus immediately, and 13 years of partnership, loyalty, and love passed between them in that single moment. The dog's tail managed a weak wag, and Marcus dropped to his knees as Kaiser approached. "Hey, partner," Marcus whispered, his voice breaking as Kaiser's familiar weight settled against him. "I'm here. I'm right here." Dr. Martinez stepped back, giving them space, but Marcus was aware of movement in the corridor. Through the partially open door he glimpsed Warden Hayes speaking quietly with someone he didn't recognize. A woman in an expensive suit carrying a briefcase. Kaiser's breathing was labored but peaceful. Marcus ran his hands through the familiar fur, feeling the prominent ribs, the tumor that had stolen his partner's strength. They sat together in silence, two old soldiers facing an inevitable goodbye. "I'm sorry," Marcus whispered. "I'm so damn sorry I wasn't there." Kaiser lifted his head and looked directly into Marcus's eyes. In that gaze, Marcus saw something he hadn't expected. Not just love or loyalty, but understanding. As if Kaiser knew exactly why Marcus wasn't home and forgave him anyway. "Detective Chen." The voice came from the door. The woman with the briefcase had entered, Warden Hayes behind her. "I'm Rebecca Sterling, federal prosecutor. I need to speak with you." Marcus didn't look up from Kaiser. "Whatever you're selling, I'm not buying." "I'm not selling anything. I'm offering you a chance to help us catch the real criminals." Sterling moved closer, her voice dropping. "The ones who put you here." Now Marcus looked up, his arm still around Kaiser. "What are you talking about?" Sterling glanced at Hayes, who nodded. "We've been investigating corruption in your precinct for 18 months. You weren't the target, Detective Chen. You were the threat. Someone wanted you gone badly enough to destroy your life." The room spun slightly. Marcus felt Kaiser's steady breathing against his chest, an anchor in suddenly turbulent waters. "The evidence against you was manufactured," Sterling continued. "We know who did it and we know why, but we need your help to prove it." Marcus stared at Rebecca Sterling, his world tilting on its axis. Kaiser stirred in his arms, sensing his partner's sudden tension. The dog's dark eyes reflected the confusion Marcus felt. Nothing made sense anymore. "You're telling me I've been in here for 8 months, lost everything I cared about while you knew I was innocent?" His voice was dangerously quiet. "We suspected," Sterling corrected. "Suspecting and proving are different things. Your case was so perfectly constructed that even we almost believed it." She pulled out a thick folder. "Someone with intimate knowledge of police procedures, evidence handling, and your personal history orchestrated your downfall." Dr. Martinez cleared her throat gently. "I should give you privacy." "No." Marcus's grip on Kaiser tightened. "Whatever this is about, it affects him too. He's my family." His eyes never left Sterling's face. "Who?" Sterling exchanged another glance with Warden Hayes. "Captain Morrison, your former supervisor." The name hit Marcus like a physical blow. Richard Morrison had been his mentor, the man who'd promoted him to detective, who'd stood as best man at his wedding. They'd shared countless late-night stakeouts, war stories, and the unspoken bond that forms between cops who've seen the worst humanity offers. "That's impossible," Marcus whispered. "Rick would never." "Captain Morrison has been running protection for the Volkov crime family for 6 years," Sterling interrupted. "Taking payments, providing intelligence, warning them about raids. You were getting too close to something that would have exposed him." Kaiser whined softly, pressing closer to Marcus. The dog's instincts had always been perfect. He could sense danger, deception, and pain with uncanny accuracy. Now he sensed his partner's anguish. "The Kozlov investigation," Marcus said slowly, pieces clicking into place. "I was tracking money laundering through the port. Rick kept reassigning me, saying we needed more evidence. You had enough evidence to bring down half the organization, including Morrison's role in it." Sterling opened her folder, revealing surveillance photos, bank records, and communications logs. "But Morrison got to you first." Marcus studied the documents, his detective's mind automatically analyzing patterns and connections. The evidence was overwhelming. Financial records showing regular payments to Morrison, surveillance footage of meetings with known Volkov associates, and most damning digital communications discussing the Chen problem. "Why should I trust you?" Marcus asked. "For all I know, this is another setup." Warden Hayes stepped forward. "Because I've been working with federal authorities for months, Detective. Your case raised red flags from the beginning. Too neat, too convenient. Good. Cops don't suddenly become corrupt overnight." Dr. Martinez had been quietly observing, but now she spoke. "Kaiser stopped eating the day after your arrest. Dogs don't typically react that way to separation unless they sense something fundamentally wrong." She knelt beside Marcus and Kaiser. "Animals are honest in ways humans often aren't," Sterling continued. "We need you to help us build an airtight case against Morrison and his network. In exchange, we'll expedite your exoneration and ensure you receive full compensation for what you've endured. And if I refuse, then you serve out your sentence while Morrison continues destroying other good cops' lives. He's already begun, targeting Detective Williams from Internal Affairs. She's been asking questions about your case." Marcus felt a chill. Sarah Williams was young, idealistic, and determined. If Morrison saw her as a threat, she was in real danger. He'd already destroyed Marcus's life. Ruining another cop's career would be nothing to him. Kaiser's breathing had become more labored. Dr. Martinez checked her watch and gave Marcus a meaningful look. Time was running short in more ways than one. "What would I have to do?" Marcus asked. Sterling pulled out a recording device. "Morrison still trusts you, even in here. He's been visiting regularly, hasn't he? Bringing you cigarettes, magazines, playing the role of loyal friend?" Marcus nodded reluctantly. Morrison had indeed been a regular visitor, expressing outrage at Marcus's conviction, promising to help with appeals. Now those visits took on a sinister quality, the predator checking on his prey. "His next visit is scheduled for tomorrow. We need you to get him talking about the case, about why certain evidence was discovered, why certain witnesses came forward." Sterling's eyes were intense. We need him to admit what he did. He's not stupid. He won't confess to anything. He doesn't need to confess. He just needs to reveal knowledge he shouldn't have. Details about evidence placement, witness coaching, timeline manipulation. Things only the real perpetrator would know. Kaiser's tail moved weakly, and Marcus realized the dog was trying to comfort him. Even dying, his partner was more concerned about Marcus's distress than his own pain. "I'll do it," Marcus said quietly. "But I have conditions." Sterling raised an eyebrow. "You're not exactly in a position to negotiate." "I am, when you need my cooperation." Marcus's voice carried the authority he'd once wielded as a detective. "First, Detective Williams gets full protection starting immediately. Second, when Kaiser—" He paused, stroking the dog's head. "When he's ready, Dr. Martinez can make it peaceful. Here with me." The prison will allow whatever you make them allow," Marcus interrupted, looking at Warden Hayes. "You brought him here once. You can make an exception again." Hayes nodded slowly. "That can be arranged." Sterling hesitated, then extended her hand. "We have a deal, Detective Chen." Marcus shook it, feeling Kaiser's weight against his chest, drawing strength from his partner's unwavering loyalty. Tomorrow, he would face the man who destroyed his life. Tonight, he would say a proper goodbye to the only family he had left. Marcus spent the night preparing for a conversation he'd never imagined having. In the pre-dawn darkness of his cell, he rehearsed questions and responses, drawing on 23 years of interrogation experience. The irony wasn't lost on him. He was about to use every technique he'd learned as a cop to expose another cop's corruption. The recording device Sterling had provided was smaller than a pill, designed to be swallowed and later retrieved. The thought made Marcus's stomach turn, but he'd endured worse indignities over the past 8 months. Prison had a way of stripping away everything but survival instinct. At breakfast, Tommy Rodriguez slid onto the bench beside him. "Word is you got some federal heat sniffing around yesterday. News travels fast, faster than you think. Your boy Morrison called the warden's office 3 times this morning, moved his visit up to noon." Tommy's eyes were sharp with concern. Man doesn't change his routine unless something's got him spooked. Marcus felt the small device settle uncomfortably in his stomach. Maybe he's just eager to see his old partner. Maybe, or maybe someone tipped him that the feds are closing. Tommy leaned closer, lowering his voice. "You be careful, Detective. Cornered animals do desperate things." The morning dragged with agonizing slowness. Marcus attended mandatory group therapy, where he sat silent, while other inmates discussed their crimes and rehabilitation. The counselor, Dr. Patterson, tried repeatedly to engage him, but Marcus's mind was elsewhere, replaying every interaction he'd had with Morrison, looking for signs he'd missed. How long had Rick been lying to him? Had their friendship ever been real, or had Marcus been nothing more than a useful fool to be discarded when convenient? At 11:45 a.m., Officer Williams escorted Marcus to the visitor's room. The space was divided by reinforced glass, with phones, for communication. Marcus had grown to hate this room. It represented everything he'd lost, everyone who'd abandoned him after his conviction. Morrison arrived precisely at noon, looking every inch the decorated police captain. His uniform was crisp, his bearing confident, his smile warm and familiar. For a moment, Marcus almost forgot what he now knew about the man who'd been like a father to him. "Marcus." Morrison's voice through the phone carried genuine-sounding concern. "You look better. Prison food agreeing with you?" "Living the dream, Rick." Marcus forced a smile. "Thanks for coming. I know you're busy." "Never too busy for you, son. You know that." Morrison leaned forward, his expression earnest. "I've got news about your appeal. The attorney thinks we might have grounds to challenge the evidence handling." Marcus felt his stomach clench, not from the recording device, but from the casual cruelty of Morrison's deception. "Which evidence?" "The planted drugs in your locker, for starters. Chain of custody has some gaps." Morrison's Eyes were steady, revealing nothing. And that witness who claimed you threatened him? Turns out he's got credibility issues. Funny how these things come to light after conviction, Marcus said carefully. Yeah, well, sometimes the system moves slow, but we're making progress. Morrison paused, studying Marcus's face. You seem different today. Something wrong? This was the moment Sterling had prepared him for. The psychological probe where Morrison would test whether Marcus suspected anything. Marcus drew on every poker game he'd ever played, every undercover operation he'd worked. Just tired, I guess. This place wears on you. He leaned back slightly. I keep thinking about that last case we worked together. The Kozlov thing. Feels like a lifetime ago. Morrison's expression didn't change, but Marcus caught something, a microsecond of tension, around the eyes. Ancient history now. Case went nowhere anyway. Still bothers me. I had solid leads on that money laundering operation. Felt like we were close to something big. Marcus kept his voice casual, conversational. Remember that warehouse on Pier 47? I wanted to put surveillance on it, but you said we needed more probable cause. Proper procedure, Marcus. Can't go cutting corners just because you've got a hunch. Right. Proper procedure. Marcus nodded slowly. Just seemed like every time I got close to something, we'd get pulled in another direction. Like someone was always one step ahead. Morrison's smile never wavered, but his knuckles whitened slightly as he gripped the phone. That's how these organizations work. They're sophisticated, well-connected. You can't take them down with hunches and circumstantial evidence. Well-connected, Marcus repeated. That's one way to put it. Makes you wonder how they always seemed to know when we were coming. Information flows both ways in this business: informants, surveillance, pattern recognition. The smart criminals learn to read law enforcement behavior. Marcus nodded again, filing away Morrison's words. The man was good, deflecting without denying, explaining without admitting. But he was also revealing knowledge he shouldn't have. How did he know the criminals had been avoiding surveillance? How did he know they were reading law enforcement patterns? I suppose you're right, Marcus said. Still, someone was feeding them information. Had to be. The timing was too perfect, too consistent. He paused, watching Morrison's face carefully. Good thing Internal Affairs investigated thoroughly. Made sure there were no leaks in the department. IA did their job, Morrison said, but there was an edge to his voice now. Found the real problem, didn't they? Found the cop who'd gone bad. The words hit Marcus like a slap. Morrison wasn't just maintaining his cover, he was enjoying it. The man was actually taking pleasure in Marcus's downfall, in the success of his frame job. Yeah, Marcus said quietly. They sure did. Morrison checked his watch. I should get going. Department meeting at 2. He stood to leave, then paused. Marcus, you ever think about what you'll do when you get out? This appeal might actually work. I think about it every day. Good. Because when you're free, you'll need to be smart about your next moves. Careful who you trust, who you talk to. Morrison's eyes were cold now, the mask slipping slightly. Prison changes a man. Sometimes not for the better. Sometimes men come out with crazy ideas about revenge, about settling scores that don't need settling. The threat was subtle but clear. Morrison was warning him to stay quiet, to accept his fate and disappear when released. The arrogance was breathtaking. The man had destroyed Marcus's life and now wanted to ensure he'd never be held accountable. I'll keep that in mind, Rick. Thanks for the advice. Morrison smiled one last time. Take care of yourself, son. As Morrison walked away, Marcus felt the recording device's weight in his stomach like a stone. He'd gotten what Sterling needed. Admissions of inside knowledge, veiled threats, and the cold calculation of a man who'd betrayed everything he'd sworn to protect. But he'd also gotten something else. The absolute certainty that Richard Morrison would kill to protect his secrets, and Marcus had just made himself a target. The recording device's retrieval was as unpleasant as expected, but the audio quality was perfect. Marcus sat in Warden Hayes' office 2 hours later, listening to his own voice discussing the Kozlov case, while Sterling and 2 other federal agents analyzed every word. He knew about the surveillance patterns, Agent Thompson noted, rewinding to a specific section. No way he should have that information unless he was the source. And the threat at the end, Sterling added. Classic intimidation. He's worried. You might talk when you're released. Marcus rubbed his temples, fighting off a headache that had nothing to do with the recording device. You have enough? Combined with the financial records and communications intercepts? Yes. We can move forward with the arrests. Sterling closed her laptop. Morrison, 6 other officers in your precinct, and 12 members of the Volkov organization. When? Tomorrow. Morning, simultaneous raids. She paused, studying Marcus's face. There's something else. Morrison requested another visit for tonight. Emergency authorization claimed it was about your appeal. Warden Hayes leaned forward. I denied it, but he's persistent, and he has friends in the system. He might find another way to reach you. Marcus felt cold certainty settle in his chest. He knows. Somehow he knows you're closing in. That's what we think. Question is, what does he plan to do about it? Before anyone could answer, Officer Williams burst through the door. Warden, we've got a problem. There's been an incident in the infirmary. Hayes stood immediately. What kind of incident? Dr. Martinez. Someone attacked her in the parking lot 20 minutes ago. She's alive, but barely. And... Williams hesitated, glancing at Marcus. The dog is missing. Marcus shot to his feet, his vision blurring with rage. What do you mean missing? Someone took him from her van. Vehicle fled the scene before security could respond. Sterling was already on her phone, barking orders to unseen agents. Marcus barely heard her. His world had narrowed to a single consuming truth. Morrison had Kaiser. He's using him as leverage, Marcus said, his voice deadly calm. He knows I'd never testify if it meant Kaiser's life. Hayes grabbed her radio. All units, lockdown protocol. No one enters or leaves the facility without my authorization. It's too late for that, Marcus said. He's not coming here. He's going. To make me come to him. As if summoned by his words, the phone on Hayes' desk rang. She answered, her face grim. Riverside Correctional, Warden Hayes speaking. Put Detective Chen on the line. Morrison's voice was clear through the speaker, cold and professional. Hayes looked at Marcus, who nodded and took the phone. Hello, Rick. Marcus. I'm disappointed in you, son. After everything we've been through together, you chose to side with federal prosecutors over your old partner. You mean after you destroyed my life and sent me to prison for crimes you committed? Morrison chuckled. I did what needed to be done. You were always too idealistic, too rigid. In this business, you adapt or you get crushed. I tried to protect you by redirecting your investigation, but you wouldn't listen, so you decided to frame me instead. I decided to eliminate a threat, nothing personal. Morrison's tone was matter of fact, as if discussing a tactical decision. But now we have a new problem. Those federal friends of yours are planning to arrest me tomorrow morning. Marcus met Sterling's eyes. She was frantically gesturing to agents trying to trace the call. Here's what's going to happen, Morrison continued. You're going to call a press conference and recant everything you told the feds. You're going to admit that you were lying, trying to get revenge against the department that rightfully convicted you. And if I don't, then your partner dies. Slowly. Painfully. And his death will be on your conscience for the rest of your very short life. Marcus closed his eyes, seeing Kaiser's trusting face, remembering the weight of the dying dog in his arms. Morrison had found the one thing that could break him. I need proof he's alive. A moment later, Marcus heard a familiar whine through the phone, Kaiser's distinctive sound of confusion and distress. The sound cut through Marcus like a blade. Proof enough? What do you want me to do? Warden Hayes will arrange a press conference for tonight, 8 p.m. You'll have every major news outlet in the city there, and you'll tell them exactly what I've told you to say. Marcus looked around the room, at Hayes' determined face, Sterling's frustrated anger, the federal agents scrambling to trace a call that would certainly be untraceable. And then we'll see if you've learned to be as pragmatic as I am. The line went dead. Sterling slammed her laptop shut. We can't let him dictate terms. We'll find the dog. With what time? Marcus snapped. It's already 5 p.m. You have 3 hours to search an entire city for a dying dog, hidden by a corrupt cop who knows every surveillance camera, every safe house, every trick in the book. So what do you suggest? Marcus was quiet for a long moment, thinking like the detective he'd once been. Morrison was careful, methodical, but he was also arrogant. He'd made one mistake after another, starting with framing Marcus in the first place. He'll want to watch, Marcus said finally. The press conference. He'll want to see me humiliated, broken. He won't be able to resist. Hayes caught on immediately. You want to use yourself as bait. I want to save my partner and put that bastard in prison where he belongs. Marcus looked at each of them in turn. But we'll only get one chance. If we miss, Kaiser dies, and Morrison disappears forever. Sterling nodded grimly. Then we better not miss. The press conference was set for the prison's main conference room, a sterile space that had hosted countless announcements over the years. By 7:30 p.m., reporters from every major news outlet in the city had gathered, their cameras and equipment, turning the room into a circus of lights and cables. Marcus stood in the adjacent holding room, wearing his orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed in front of him. Through the one-way glass, he could see the assembled media, hungry for the story of a corrupt cop's confession. They had no idea they were about to witness something entirely different. Sterling adjusted the nearly invisible wire taped to Marcus's chest. Remember, we need him to reveal Kaiser's location. He won't be able to resist gloating once he thinks he's won. Audio is clear, Agent Thompson reported from his position in the back of the conference room, disguised as a camera technician. We've got 4 teams positioned around the facility ready to move. Warden Hayes approached, her expression grim. Marcus, you understand the risk. If this goes wrong, I lose the only family I have left. Marcus's voice was steady. But if we don't try, I lose him anyway. And Morrison gets away with destroying how many other lives? At exactly 8 p.m., Hayes escorted Marcus into the conference room. The camera flashes were blinding, the shouted questions overwhelming. Marcus had attended dozens of these press conferences as a detective, but never from this side of the podium. Detective Chen will make a brief statement, Hayes announced. No questions will be taken at this time. Marcus stepped to the microphone, his cuffed hands resting on the podium. He looked directly into the cameras, knowing Morrison was watching somewhere, probably celebrating his victory. 8 months ago, I was convicted of corruption, evidence tampering, and witness intimidation. Tonight, I'm here to tell you the truth about what really happened. A murmur went through the assembled reporters. This wasn't what they'd been told to expect. The evidence against me was manufactured by Captain Richard Morrison, my former supervisor, who has been providing protection. For the Volkov crime family for 6 years, I was framed because my investigation was getting too close to exposing his operation. The room erupted. Reporters shouted questions, cameras flashed, and Hayes stepped forward to restore order. Marcus continued speaking, his voice cutting through the chaos. Captain Morrison has kidnapped my retired K-9 partner, a dying dog named Kaiser, and is holding him hostage to prevent me from revealing the truth. But I won't be silenced by threats or intimidation. Marcus's phone, Sterling's phone actually, began buzzing in Hayes's pocket. She handed it to him, and he answered on speaker. You stupid son of a bitch. Morrison's voice was pure rage now, his careful composure shattered. You've just signed your partner's death warrant. Where is he, Rick? Closer than you think. But not close enough for your federal friends to reach him in time. Morrison's breathing was heavy, angry. You always were too righteous for your own good, just like your father. Marcus went rigid. What did you say? Your old man. Detective Paul Chen, 30 years on the force, died in that car accident when you were 12. Except it wasn't an accident, was it? He was getting too close to something he shouldn't have been investigating. The conference room had gone completely silent. Even the reporters sensed they were witnessing something beyond their story. You killed my father. I protected the organization, just like I'm protecting it now. Morrison's voice carried satisfaction now, the pleasure of finally revealing a secret he'd carried for decades. He was investigating dock workers taking bribes, had no idea how deep it went. Would have brought down half the department, including my father-in-law. Sterling was frantically signaling to her teams, but Marcus couldn't focus on anything except Morrison's words. His father's death had shaped his entire life, his decision to become a cop, his unwavering commitment to justice, his belief that good officers could make a difference. All of it built on a lie. The brake lines were easy to access, Morrison continued, lost in his confession. Made it look like metal fatigue. Your mother never suspected a thing. You destroyed my family twice, Marcus whispered. I did what needed to be done. Just like I'm doing now. Your partner has maybe an hour left. The cancer's moving fast. You want to spend his last moments watching him suffer because of your self-righteousness? Sterling was at Marcus's side, her voice urgent. We're tracing the call, keep him talking. But Marcus barely heard her. Kaiser was dying, alone and afraid, because of Marcus's choices. His father had died because he'd gotten too close to the truth. How many other good cops had Morrison destroyed over the years? Tell me where he is, Marcus said into the phone. Pier 47, Warehouse 12, the same place you wanted to surveil all those months ago. Fitting, don't you think? Morrison laughed bitterly. But here's the thing, Marcus. Even if your friends find him, even if they arrest me, I've got one last surprise waiting. The line went dead. Sterling was already shouting orders. All teams, to Pier 47, Warehouse 12. Move now. But Marcus was already moving, Hayes unlocking his cuffs as they ran toward the exit. The media chaos behind them faded into background noise as they raced through the prison corridors toward the parking lot. You can't come with us, Sterling said as they reached the vehicles. You're still a prisoner. Like hell I am. Marcus's voice carried an authority that brooked no argument. That's my partner in there, and Morrison's got 30 years of tricks up his sleeve. You need someone who knows how he thinks. Hayes made the decision. He's in my custody. I'm coming too. The drive to the docks took 12 minutes that felt like hours. Marcus sat in the passenger seat, his mind racing through possibilities. Morrison was cornered, desperate, and had nothing left to lose. Men like that were capable of anything. Warehouse 12 sat at the end of the pier, a massive structure that had been abandoned for years. Federal agents surrounded the building as Marcus and the others arrived, but no one had moved in yet. Thermal imaging shows 2 heat signatures inside, Agent Thompson reported. One large, stationary, one smaller, also stationary. Marcus felt his heart sink. If Kaiser wasn't moving. There's something else, Thompson continued. We're reading chemical signatures consistent with accelerants. The place is rigged to burn. Sterling turned to Marcus. He's going to destroy the evidence and anyone inside. Marcus was already moving toward the warehouse. Then we better move fast. They found the side entrance unlocked, as if Morrison wanted them to come in. Marcus led the way, his 23 years of experience guiding him through the dark interior. The smell of gasoline was overwhelming. In the center of the warehouse, illuminated by a single work light, Kaiser lay on a blanket. Even from a distance, Marcus could see the dog's labored breathing, the way his once proud head rested heavily.